Welcome to White Women Wake Up. I'm Jonelle.
And I'm Karen.
Together we're diving into real, unfiltered conversations about what it means to wake up as white women in a world shaped by bias, power dynamics, and inherited patterns. We are here to challenge norms, examine our assumptions, and foster empathy through raw intergenerational dialogue. It's not always easy, and we don't always agree, but we show up anyways. So let's wake up together.
Welcome. Oh my gosh. We take so long to set up all our audio and stuff. I already forgot what we're supposed to reflect on.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
We just talked about it too.
Well, I don't know. We were referring to it.
So last week I led the topic and it was about appropriation in authorship.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I've been thinking about it all week. Okay. So it's interesting. When I read something that, like I'm reading a novel right now that's out of the 1500s, I would never, ever think that it's real, that a man or a woman or someone wrote it. It's so far long ago that I don't question it the same way. And so I was thinking about this appropriation and authorship when it comes to current stories like I'm living today, right? Or like if I'm the author of a story that's set today, then I own it as if it's real. So anyways, I think I get so embedded that anything that is in the written word is like truth that I don't step back to think about where those stories came from.
But I also think, though, and this is what I was trying to get at, is I also still think some of that's the responsibility of the author to be a little bit more authentic in that place. Because right now, a lot of authors really weave these narratives as if, yes, they might be fiction, but they're almost based on reality and stuff. And so going back to American Dirt, we did more research. The author did do research and spent time in immigration shelters and things like that, talking to lawyers. But the criticism really came still from the Latin and the Mexican community of like her characters and her story were still, one, a lot of tropes. Two, it fed like it was based off of a true story. There was kind of that narrative there. And three, there's also so many Latin authors that have written on this subject. And so again, it's more where are we taking the time to uplift, the authors with closer like lived experience or closer lived experience.
Yeah.
And so I know it's a tough thing, especially for avid readers out there.
Yeah. But I do think in the end, the reflection is it goes back to, like you said, what is the responsibility of the author? And yet also what is our own responsibility to when we're consuming information and literature and culture and stuff like that. Okay. But that was a great topic because I thought about it all week long. Okay. So my topic is on coded language.
Ooh.
Okay. I'm going to unveil my topic.
Okay.
Jonelle and I are talking a lot about interviewing styles, and I'm still not there. I've got a lot to learn. But anyways, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
So when you think about the word gentrified, what do you visualize first?
Oh, to be honest, what I visualize are high-rise, like townhouses, like modern townhouses in older neighborhoods, maybe, that might have had a different community than what's moving in now.
Okay, so
But I really get a strong visual of modern townhouses.
Yeah. So before we did this work, would you have thought about the people that were displaced when something was gentrified?
Well, that's a tricky question because I've been doing this work before the podcast.
Yeah.
So
So do you immediately think about the people that were displaced when you hear the word gentrified?
Yeah.
Or do you see
I thought you were saying, what are you visualizing?
Yeah.
Well, to me, that is the visual of people being displaced is like moving in modern townhouses.
Yeah.
So I think, no, I always did, but I think I always did because the minute gentrification was brought up to me, like the awareness was always brought up to me. I think the better thing, and maybe what you're getting at, is I wasn't always aware gentrification was happening. But the minute I knew of gentrification, I understood all the implications around it.
Yeah.
But I think in my bubble that I grew up, I wasn't always aware of gentrification. So that's, I think, is that kind of what you're maybe getting at?
Well, what I'm really getting at is this notion of coded language. Okay. So Jonelle talked about this in the podcast before, but we were helping my son move, and part of his move was buying a new car. He's always lived in urban spaces, and so he's never had a need for a car before. And so we were test driving some cars, and while we were test driving, the dealer or the guy selling the car, he made this comment. He said, my son moved to Ithaca. He said, people in Ithaca are weird. And I thought a lot about that statement because what does he mean by weird? I didn't say anything. I didn't ask him by weird. I think I was kind of even afraid to ask him, what did he mean by that? But I also I started thinking about this language, this coded language. Like, what does it mean when we use these words that don't really describe something and do describe, but they soften kind of maybe our biases?
Okay.
Right after that, I watched a movie, and there's this great movie called The Levies of Monticello. Okay. And it's about this Jewish family that bought Jefferson's home. And in fact, Thomas Jefferson only lived in Monticello for a very short period, maybe less than 10 years. But he designed it, but he had to sell it because he kind of ran out of money. And so this Jewish family bought Monticello and lived in it for over like 80 some years. Okay. And through the various times that they owned it, they basically invested all their money and restored it. The Jewish gentleman, I think his name is, let me get his name, Jefferson Monroe Levy. He was like the grandson of the original Levy who bought it. Okay. They invited this woman over, Maude Littleton, and this was in like 1909. Okay. And instead of her being grateful for coming to the beautiful previous Jefferson home, she got upset and felt like this home should be, quote unquote, owned by the American public. And she went on a rampage discrediting the Levy family. Okay. And I thought, this is so interesting because all the things she said were really coded language.
Okay, that's where you're going.
So because she didn't like the fact that a Jewish family owned this American heritage site. So it made me go down this path of coded language. And so I wanted to research so she used tropes like, first of all, she didn't use her original name. She did a pen name of Peggy O'Neill. Oh, yeah. Then she used language like she never said anything about that they were Jewish. Yeah. She said that they were orientalizing the home, that they were not patriots, that they, even though they were from America, that she used language like they weren't patriot, that they were changing the sacred space of the place. She talked about the Levies as being outsiders. So anyways, it made me go down those two things of coded language. Yeah. What do we mean when we use this soft language? Okay. And
Can I circle?
Sorry. Go for it.
Gentrification does not feel like soft language.
It is soft language because what we don't do, we use the word anytime language is used to not describe the actual situation. It is soft language. So in other words, we gentrified something, but we don't talk about the displacing. Impact. We didn't say we created a space that displaced a large body community. Okay. And in other words, we generalize instead of using the language like, well, we tore down these buildings. Yeah. We took away the architecture. We displaced the original people that lived there. Yeah. And gentrification is is a broad word that describes it.
Yeah.
But when we use that word, we don't actually have to think about what it is. It's like DEI. We use the word DEI, but we don't go deep into saying that when we work on methods of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're getting to know other people.
And it makes sense. I can see how gentrification has become such a normalized word that it has softened. I think when I hear gentrification, I don't hear it in a soft way. I understand the impact. And so I get what you're saying. But in society, we say it so casually now that, yes, okay, I get now how it's softened and it's coded for things.
I didn't know, but it actually has a term when we use coded language. It's called dog whistle politics.
Oh, I've heard about this
Have you heard of dog? I've never heard of it. And it refers to using coded or suggestive language in political messaging to appeal to a specific group of people while remaining ambiguous and or even unnoticed by the general public.
Yes.
So gentrification now as a word, but I would say when they were gentrifying neighborhoods, I didn't know the depth of what they were doing.
Yeah.
I thought it meant remodeling. I thought it meant cleaning up. Yeah, I didn't realize it meant what it is. The term dog whistle is borrowed from.
I was just about to look that up.
It's called borrowed from dog, which emit a high frequency sound that's only audible to dogs and is used to describe political messages that have a hidden or secondary meaning for a targeted audience. And so one of the examples we use today is merit-based.
Yep.
Instead of like actually calling out that when we say it's merit-based, it speaks to a certain group, and that certain group it invokes a certain meaning, but what it's really saying is we're colorblind. It's really saying that we don't want to look at, we don't want to think about color. Race.
Well, merit-based tends to go a lot towards achievements, education, which are unfair platforms when you look across the board, because disproportionately more white people have access to that than people of color.
Yes.
And so thereby saying merit-based, yes, it is a coded language.
Instead of saying, hey, white people versus black.
Or just spelling out needs that are there, but it does differentiate. What are other ones?
One of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to look, are there examples of, I kind of compared this Maude Littleton, so the woman in the Levy story that sparked my thinking. Her name was Maude Littleton, and she was the one that went on this rampage about this national treasure of Monticello. And so I started thinking about the Moms for Liberty because they're the ones that are really into burning books and banning woke culture. They're very concerned with this. And so some of the comparisons is they use the language of child safety a lot. And so, our instead of saying we don't want our kids to be exposed to different stories, they will use tropes like child safety. And so like in Maude Littleton's
protecting
space,
children.
We're protecting children. In Maude Littleton's space, it's like we're protecting a sacred space.
Yes.
We're not making it Jewish or something, whatever that means. So I thought that was really interesting, that kind of one. Or parental rights. So it's like this idea of parental rights, instead of saying, these might be racist segregation ideas. And so, I don't know. I just thought one of the things I'd love to have you think about is, what are some of the things that you've thought about in, like when we use the word like urban versus like, do we immediately think about certain people that live in an urban space. So go for it.
Interesting. There's this TikTok creator, and I want to look them up. I'll try to find it for everyone. But she is one of my favorite creators because she flips coded language on
really?
it.
Yeah.
Yes. And so she does all these great skits about like, you know, one of my favorite ones is like how she like can't pronounce white names. She always says Megan instead of Megan and stuff. And there's one around like, a Thanksgiving holiday. And it's essentially is associating like if the majority of the world were people of color and how some of these white norms would look so odd. So when you brought up urban, she does it a lot with like, oh, you live in the suburbs?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard it's scary out there. Like I heard they have and stuff. And so it's these associations we put when you're right. Someone says urban.
Yeah.
They usually have kind of maybe a negative connotation, like, oh, that's a pretty urban space, as in maybe it's not as safe, maybe it's not as secure. And so it is interesting, these words that we've attached meaning to and subtleties, or I think the one that gets thrown around a lot lately is real Americans.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that's a perfect
they're a real
example.
American.
Yeah.
Referencing that immigrants aren't real Americans, referencing that and so, but it's interesting because what is a real American?
Yeah.
We all came here on stolen land. So, like, white people did. So, that's a really interesting perspective there.
Well, and it's interesting. One of the things that I was interested in then and going a little, well, first of all, let me give you a little data, which is really scary. So if we really, when I think about coded language, I feel like DEI has been really misused and misrepresented. And now it's coded for anytime we use DEI language, we're talking about, BIPOC people kind of thing. And do we really want to expose our kids to BIPOC stories type of thing. So it's very coded for, I don't want to deal with anyone other than myself. So anyways, one of the things that's interesting in coded language, when we do things like that, they were saying that over 440 bills in the states, in over 42 states, are anti-DEI bills that have been passed recently in the last 2 years. So when we don't call out, when we use words like DEI rather than learning about diversity, equity, inclusion, when we use like it's now coded language for a negative thing, we don't take the time to understand what people are really talking about, which is a really
I don't think DEI is a code language for negative in everyone's perspective.
But not in everyone's. But when we're talking 42 states have done 440 anti-DEI bills, people are associating.
To me, that's not coded.
Yeah.
To me, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
They don't like diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's me, coded are.
But okay, hang on. Let me back this up then differently. If I was someone that didn't like a broad perspective of people, I might say, oh, well, all that DEI stuff.
No, I understand. But to me, that's not coded.
Instead of saying, oh, all that conversation about Black people. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see.
So, they can use the word DEI
when really
as a neutral word,
as it's coded for Black people.
It's coded
people for color.
Or queer
I didn't understand what you're saying. So, I see. Okay, then
So, in other words,
I agree.
I can do anti-DEI proposals,
but I'm not racist.
But I'm not doing anti-queer or anti-Black.
Yeah, I'm not homophobic. I'm not racist. I'm just anti-DEI.
I'm just anti-DEI.
I see what you're saying.
So that's what thank you for clarifying that. And so the problem when we don't use our real language, when we soften it, we're not then we're all of a sudden passing 440 bills that are actually Black, anti-othering and so forth.
But I think your really good point, though, was like with calling out dog whistle politics is really true in that statement of understanding that so much of politics are just solid marketing strategies.
Yes.
And solid marketing strategies are around simplifying and softening things. And so it is interesting that...
Well, it's even weird. You wonder if like the language of like, you're a Christian is now a softened word. Like, in other words, oh, you're a Christian. That means that you're a white Republican.
Well,
I don't know.
No, but
I don't know.
But I feel like then that you're bringing up a subject that the coded words in two different places, because we also recently talking to someone who their definition of a good person was Christian.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. And so, and I do think there's a lot of people out there, as those would probably be some of their first adjectives, is that person is Christian. And so I think Christian could be coded, like, think about it. Oh, she's a good Christian girl. Like, it's coded for she has morals. It's coded for this. But then you're right, on the other spectrum, there's probably plenty of people like, oh, he's a Christian or she's a Christian, which kind of which says something else in those. So I do think it could be coded both ways.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, though, is as I was doing some research on this coded language, because it does, when that gentleman said, oh, they're weird.
Yeah.
I was really uncomfortable with that.
Totally.
I'm like, what is weird?
We understood like, kind of what he was going at.
But maybe we didn't. And what I was sad about is, and maybe I was afraid.
I think we did, because he emphasized he was normal and these people were weird.
Yeah.
And so, and
his normal was not normal to my self or my values.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so anyways, I one of the things that they say in doing this work is, can we ask people to be clearer?
Yeah.
Instead of letting coded language slide, like with this woman, with the Moms of Liberty. Why do you really want to ban these specific books? What is in that book that you're afraid your child is going to read?
I think you're hitting on a deeper subject that is so embedded with white women especially, is passive-aggressive, not clear language.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the root and the root of the communication of white women.
Yeah.
And so this is what we talk about all the time is, so asking people to be direct and not use coded language is literally shaking the entire communication system of white women. Which drives me, it's one thing, as you know, I love clear communication, which has been a struggle with us, as in the past, sometimes you've also been coded. And so I agree, coded language is awful. But I think for our listeners, it's again being aware of when they're using this.
Yeah.
But like asking people as a whole, I think people genuinely think they're being direct. I think there's so many white women out there who don't even understand the depths of their passive aggressiveness that I think it is clarity in a lot of people's minds. Like they think these adjectives.
It's interesting that you should
think back to yourself 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Would you have thought some of these things that you're using, would you have thought it wasn't clear?
No, I would have. I use a lot of value adjectives. I do. I do use a lot of it, and I've had to really think about good, bad, funny, this or that, the adjectives I use to describe someone. And they are shortcuts to having to elaborate on the context of a situation.
Yeah.
Like if this gentleman had said, the people of Ithaca.
We have different beliefs.
We have different. No. Even different beliefs is too vague. Like maybe he would have gone into something about environmental. Maybe he would have gone into
even
something
deep into the different beliefs.
Like what is weird that he's talking about? But
it is a dismissive adjective. But in the same way, or it is a lazy, as you said, a lazy adjective.
Yeah.
Or shortcut. You said a better one. It's a
said a shortcut. And so,
sorry, I added lazy to that.
Exactly. And so one of the things that is interesting about this is in our thinking about coded language or the dog whistling, as we're saying, so only certain people hear it exactly like what we're saying, is are we actually, interrogating or doing this? So one of the things that they talked about is teach this code scan. It's an acronym for context, othering clues, denied specifics, and echo patterns. So let me read this. This is a research thing that I looked in. So first of all, this is a way that you can decide is someone using coded language.
Or if you yourself are using coded.
Or if you yourself are using coded language. So context. Where and when does the phrase pop up, and who's voting or advertising around it. So who's getting, who's being affected by it? Who is being informed by it? What is the context around that story? And so like, I'll use this example of that gentleman, weird. It was interesting because the context in which he said it made me feel like he wants me to side with him.
Yes, it did.
So, and it felt uncomfortable because I'd rather just have a conversation.
Yes.
So the othering clues, or context even more important, is like when we talk about gentrification as a kind of a simple word or a word to describe something, we don't really look at who's being affected by it, right? Or we may think about, like, we don't think, when we talk about gentrification, we also might think about it more in terms of who's winning in that, like who's making the money in when something gets gentrified. I don't know.
Yeah.
The other one is, when are we othering people? Does the wording imply an outsider or a threat?
Yeah.
And his weird didn't seem inclusive.
No.
It didn't seem...
It wasn't a positive.
Yeah, it wasn't a positive. And then D, so this is an acronym for code, denied specifics. So here's coded language. If I had pressed him, and I didn't press him for specifics, would he have given me that? I don't think he would have.
I don't know if he would have.
Because I think he would have been uncomfortable. Yeah. He also been mad at trying to fish, like, do I agree or disagree?
I mean, but stepping back, we don't know what his actions would have been. These are all assumptions. Yeah, so I think these are really good things for yourself to reflect on.
Yeah.
And these kind of things. So say all four
so
again.
It's code. Code, context, othering, someone othered, denied. So in other words, if in this context, the coded language of weird, would he have denied any more details?
Yeah.
Like, would he have said, well, that's because there's XYZ kind of people? I don't know. And then echo pattern. Is the same phrase echoed verbatim across news outlets, different states, different places, different communities?
Yes.
And so this echo. So is it coded language within other spaces? So context. What is the context? Where does the phrase...
Context, othering, detain, or
denied, so, and then echo pattern.
So I think what's really interesting about this is, it's going back again to this guy, is it also, and you kind of talked about this, it really then separates our perspectives. Like, people are so on different pages if we're not coming with clear language.
Yeah.
And so like his weird, but like, I thought Ithaca was weird in a good way.
Yeah.
We could still be using weird, but then we're not thinking
But we don't even know.
I think what was really interesting, extending from that conversation, you weren't there for this, but him and his coworker said another thing. They're like, yes, this is why Ithaca's, there's a saying for Ithaca, 10 square miles and reality outside of it. And they took that, and I thought that was such an interesting thing. And they all took it as, well, Ithaca's not in reality because they're crazy. And so I kind of looked up the origin of what that is. And actually the origin of that phrase is Ithaca's was built to be a city within 10 square miles. So it could be walkable. It could be, an urban environment where people could happily live and work within 10 square miles.
Yeah.
And so kind of it was like this haven.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was so interesting that, of course, from their perspective, it had been used so many times as a coded term that Ithaca's not in reality as a negative versus the actual intent behind it and the people who brought it up and the people who have on bumper stickers, because it was a big bumper sticker thing there, were actually talking about as like a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, didn't Paris actually tried to be the 15-minute city.
Yeah, the 15-minute city. And so that's what I think is just so interesting.
Yeah.
Again, it just separates us even more when we're using these coded languages and we're not having clarity outside of all the other harm that it's doing.
Yeah. So anyways, that was just an interesting subject. And so the acronym is code.
Okay.
Maybe one of the things we can do in our conversations in the next week or so is think about, if there's a word that's uncomfortable and ambiguous, is it coded? Is it coded with another community of people to mean something?
Well, I actually say step further. I say think about you can't really, you can analyze other people's language, but the best thing to do is analyze your own and then your own what you're hearing. And so are there words that you use a lot to describe something? Are there words that you're finding coming out of your mouth in a conversation that might be coded language that you didn't recognize as coded language? And so I think that's a big one for people to kind of step back and think through.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great topic. Thanks, Karen.
Dog whistle topic.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. The dog whistle. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on White Women Wake Up. We hope today's conversation sparked something in you, whether it's a reflection, a new question, or a deeper commitment to showing up with empathy and accountability. If you found this episode meaningful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can always connect with us on Instagram, YouTube, whitewomenwakeup.com, Substack, TikTok. We're everywhere. We'd love to hear your thoughts and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, be open, and keep waking up. Bye.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Do we sound funny?
No, we sound good.
Wait. Whoa.
Why is there an echo?
Okay.
Do I not have mine on? Oh, mine was on.
Yours was on?
My volume was on.
No, so was mine. I probably turned it up. Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah. No.
Oh, no. How about this? Say something.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello.
No, it wasn't my volume. Okay. Jonelle, let's get going.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh,